Welcome to I Caught It on Audio. This is Ride or Die episode 11, Aerosmith, part 2, The Fall.
Welcome to I Caught It on Audio. We are continuing our Ride or Die series on the band Aerosmith. This is the second of a four-part series where we take a deep dive into their complete discography. We'll be covering the albums Draw the Line, Night in the Ruts, Rockin' a Hard Place, and Done with Mirrors, and have affectionately dubbed this section The Fall. So last episode, we talked about the first four albums and the rise to fame that they produced for Aerosmith, and things are starting to go downhill in this series. We're going to start with the album Draw the Line, which came out again just over a year later. So this is 5 albums in less than 5 years. So they've just been producing content. We're still on Columbia Records. We've still got Jack Douglas as the producer. And we still have the original lineup for Aerosmith. Let's see, what singles do we have? Draw the Line was a single. Kings and Queen was a single. And Get It Up was a single.
Yep, I think that was the third single.
Yeah. What do you guys think of where the band's going in this one? Dan, do you have any notes on this you want to share?
Sure, yes. So Draw the Line, I think it's a step down from the last 2 albums, but I don't think it's a huge step down. It feels a little less sort of focused and polished, and it feels like they're really just trying to write rock and roll songs. And there were songs that I knew that I liked, like Draw the Line and Kings and Queens. Both of those songs hold up great. I really like Draw the Line. It's got great vocals. It's got a really cool riff. Kings and Queens is like one of my favorite, I guess, what would you call it? Like, it's like a mid-tempo, like rock song that doesn't sound like an Aerosmith song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it sounds kind of prog rock to me a little bit.
Yeah, a little unconventional.
It's a 5-minute epic somehow, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how they fit as much as they did into just 5 minutes, which, you know, is a little long for an Aerosmith song, but
you don't want it to end either. That's the thing. It's like phenomenal. I want more Kings and Queens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably my favorite song on the album.
No, without a doubt.
Yeah. And then, you know, they've got the other songs that I had down as highlights were, I Want to Know Why. It's, Get It Up is cool because of the interplay between like the drums and the vocals and the chorus, and it's got some slide guitar. I really like Bright Light Fright. It's a Joe Perry song. It almost sounds like a punk rock song, which I think he said it was Sex Pistols inspired, so that makes sense. Right. But it doesn't sound much like an Aerosmith song, but really, really quick, in and out, really good, fast song. I love Milk Cow Blues because when Aerosmith is doing stripped down blues, I'm always in on it.
And that's another one of their great covers.
Yep. That's a Kokomo Arnold, who I've never heard of, but fantastic blues cover. Overall, I would say it actually holds up better than I thought it would. I thought the wheels were really going to start coming off at this point, but overall, I would say pretty good. Zach, what were your thoughts when you listened to this?
So initially, and I went through it one time, and I was like, is Kings and Queens the only good song on this album?
And on first listen, it is, honestly.
Yeah, it definitely is. It seriously rises above. And of course, I've had experiences with it, whether it's the live version from Pandora's Box or listening to it from the album version before. So it was always, one of my favorites just in general. But as I got a little bit deeper and listened to it more, some other ones started to kind of rise up, and the ones that you guys mentioned, I also liked Critical Mass and Sight for Sore Eyes. I thought it like overall, you're right. I think it is a little bit of a step down, but I think it's still like consistent enough. One of the biggest things I noticed is it seems like the bass was a little bit more crunchy. I don't know if they added like some overdrive to it, but it really kind of, or maybe it was just like the compression that they used, but it just had sort of like a kind of a crunchy drive to the bass lines. At least that's what it was in my ears anyway. So it almost seemed like they were kind of like trying to shake up the sound just a little bit to kind of like, move in a slightly different direction, or maybe kind of like go more with the late 70s, whatever was going on at that time. Like they wanted to kind of change the production or change the sounds of their instruments just enough so that it sounded more cutting edge. But I think overall it's a good album. I mean, it's not as fun as some of those other in the first four that we did. But I definitely enjoyed like re-listens and I got more into it the more I gave it a chance. And I absolutely loved the cover art of it, the caricatures. It's like like they captured the spirit of each one of the band members and the lips.
They're ridiculous looking in a photograph, and then the caricature can only make them so much more ridiculous looking.
Yeah, it was perfect.
It's great cover. It's probably their best cover art, honestly.
Yeah, it's the most distinctive cover art. It's still memorable. They have some other cool covers too, but you're absolutely right about the production. It does feel like a change up. It feels a bit murkier, a little less sort of separated and clean, which isn't necessarily bad. It feels different.
And that's the biggest thing about the bass that kind of like stuck out is like once you start adding in a little bit of drive or a little extra distortion or something, then the distortion of the guitars kind of loses their emphasis. Mm-hmm. And I don't begrudge adding distortion on the bass. I think that can be done really well. Like we've heard it in some of the stuff that Flea has done on Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh yeah.
But I think you need to sort of balance the rest of the mix with that, and I don't think they did that great of a job with that here. I think it's that you've got like too much stuff being distorted, and it just gets really murky.
Yeah, their guitars are always a little sort of. They're not the brightest guitars, not always, and I think that's leading to that sort of. It all kind of runs together, which kind of works because they're often playing similar things, and it's all sort of It's not like broad spread out, airy music anyway. It kind of works, but it does feel a bit muddy. So Dave, what you know this album fairly well, I think better than the two of us. What were your thoughts on a re-listen?
I love this album, honestly. When we I had a hard time putting this in the fall section, but it is the first step down. Yeah. This is one of my many top 3 Aerosmith albums. As we go through this, you're gonna see there's probably 6 albums in my top 3, but
increasingly misnamed top 3.
Yes. It's High, which is obviously Kings and Queens, is just as good as any High on any of the other albums.
Yeah.
It's in the same league, I should say. I wouldn't choose it over Dream On or Last Child, but it's in that same league. And then the rest of it is a bit of a step down, but it's so good. It's just this great hard rock album with a couple of cool little blues tracks on it, and I just love it. And it makes me so sad as we move forward that they couldn't keep this up, because this would have been a perfectly fine step to the side musically. And then if they'd have been able to return to what they were doing in Rocks and Toys in the Attic. But unfortunately, we don't get to go that way. So up next is Night in the Ruts.
Well, let's talk about all these huge number of like outtakes and stuff that that we listened to also.
We've got a bunch of bonus tracks in this one because, and we touched on this a little bit last time, but Joe Perry and Steven Tyler did not like going and showing up at this, and I think Steven Tyler was the biggest culprit at this point. But we've got a whole bunch of musical tracks with Carl Whitham, Circle Jerk, and Subway, which were just the pretty much just the rhythm section, sitting there waiting for the other guys to show up and recording these cool little tracks. And then there's a All Your Love, which I think is a cover.
Yeah, it's an Otis Rush cover.
Yeah.
It's really good. I really like that
it
one.
is.
How did that not end up on the album? Because it was recorded at the same time, same studio and everything.
Well, what I would say is they recorded both that and the Milk Cow Blues cover. Yeah. And I'm not sure that I like Milk Cow Blues less than All Your Love, but if they would have ditched, I don't know, The Hand That Feeds or something, or Sight for Sore Eyes, I would have been okay, because I like it more than most of the songs on Draw the Line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they could have easily gotten rid of The Hand That Feeds. But also when you've got, 9 tracks, you don't want 2 of them to be covers if you've got original material for the rest of them.
I suppose, but I would rather have had it on the album for sure.
Yeah, I know. Because it's an amazing track. And we've got a Come Together cover that was on the Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band film.
That I didn't know. I knew the cover well because, you'd played it a bunch of times when we were listening to stuff, but it's a good cover.
It's one of the more famous covers. It's a little too on the nose for me.
Yeah. If they would have ditched the reversed percussion thing, that made it sound very similar to the Beatles version, I think it would have actually been better by standing it aside a little bit.
But also, if you're starring in a Beatles movie or partaking in a Beatles movie, and Paul and John are standing there while you're recording it or whatever, you kind of do it the way they want to do it, I would imagine. So I don't know how much control they had over that. But then we've also got another, and I swear this song, the Chip Away the Stone, it was the single from the live bootleg album, and it is the only version I can find of this thing. It's a really neat track.
I love this song. I thought it was on an album. I was convinced. I was like, this isn't on Draw the Line. What the hell?
No,
I love this song. It's one of my favorites.
And it's written by Richie Supa. I think that's how you say his name. Who we'll see I think we see in the lineup for the next album.
Yeah, he actually co-writes a song or writes a song for them over the next decade or so here and there.
Yeah, he's just a friend of the band and a songwriter, and
subs in when they start to lose guitar players left and right as we go forward.
So yeah, it's just a really cool. I didn't know live albums had singles, but apparently they released one for that one. Yeah. But it's such, and if Zach, I don't know if you spent any time with that live album. I didn't include the live album.
No, I didn't.
I included tracks that didn't appear elsewhere, but it's an amazing live album.
Yeah.
It just exemplifies how good this band is on
that was
stage.
live bootleg. Is that what
live bootleg? Yeah.
Yeah. We used to play that all the time, and
oh my gosh,
it just kicks ass.
Good. Yeah. Just rocks you.
Yeah.
From start to beginning. Rocks your socks.
So briefly, I think my least favorite of the instrumental ones was Craw Whitham, which must be Kramer, Whitford, and Hamilton, I'm guessing.
Yep. That is correct.
It's cool that they cranked out that song. The riffs aren't my favorite, but I really like the riffs on Circle Jerk. I think that's a Brad Whitford song.
I think so, yeah.
It's really cool guitar, really cool drums. And Subway, I guess, was from the Toys in the Attic sessions, from what I could see.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was from these sessions.
Again, my research is like Wikipedia level, so yeah, I don't know. But it's really good too. I really like that one as well.
That was a tough one to nail down. That was a bonus track on the Box of Fire soundtrack, or the Box of Fire compilation collection, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. All the extra stuff is really good, like I almost wish that some of it had replaced a couple of the weaker tracks on Draw the Line, but I don't think I love it quite as much as you do, Dave, but I did think it's stronger than I expected it to be. And it did take, I think maybe it's that dense production. The more you listen to it, the more the songs kind of come to life. So yeah, it was pretty good. Any other thoughts on Draw the Line and the accoutrements to the album, all the other stuff before we move on?
The only thing I wanted to say was with Kings and Queens, it really feels like it could have been either album opener or album ender.
Yes.
Like it just seems kind of odd that they put it. I think album ender probably would have been a little bit better.
Yeah.
It just seemed kind of odd where they placed it in the track lineup, because it's so good that it really like after it's over, you just kind of want to like sigh and
yeah, just end on that massive
just,
monster guitar solo and
the strings and all
strings
that
and everything at
all
the
that
end.
goodness.
And, oh yeah.
Well, I'm guessing. I first of all, I love Draw the Line as a album opener, so I'm good with that.
Yeah,
Yep.
But I'm also guessing that Kings and Queens opened the second side B of the vinyl.
I'll bet you're right.
Yep, I wasn't even thinking in terms of the vinyl sides.
Yeah, I just thought of that now as we were looking at it because it's sixth and there's shorter songs in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of that way, but that's entirely lost on compact disc or you know when you're streaming or on tape. You know, but yeah.
All right. So next is Night in the Ruts. This is the first time they've taken almost 2 years to come out with another album. Still on Columbia, 35 minutes long, so it's not particularly long, typical LP. And Joe Perry left halfway through recording.
Yep.
He was sick of Tyler not showing up at all and just said, I'm done. You've got what you're going to get from me. Jimmy Crespo and Richie Supa recorded the rest of it. So, yeah, it was... And what singles did we have in this one? Remember Walking in the Sand.
I think it's the only single because they were starting to lose any level of success.
Yeah. And
they were having trouble selling albums and selling out venues.
When they originally started, Steven Tyler would just be at the studio when anyone was recording their part and making sure that all the notes were right and all that stuff. And then by the time this album came out, that he was nowhere to be found. So the whole drive, that focus was completely gone. So it was up to the other guys, and it's hard to be motivated if your front man isn't showing up.
Yeah. And he was deep in the drugs, right? Like he was pretty
crack and heroin and all the things. So
yeah, it sounds like all five guys were definitely partaking, but he was probably the furthest. I mean, maybe Joe Perry was maybe a step in that direction too, but it sounds like he was in the hardest stuff.
Yeah,
and was the most affected.
Yeah, and another big change here is we no longer have Jack Douglas, who was another key part of the machine for the last 4 albums, in creating their sound, keeping them together, and making things work. So we've got somebody named Gary Lyons produced this one. So yeah, that was another big change. Now this album is not a complete loss. I absolutely love Reefer Head Woman. I think it is a phenomenal track, and it's one of my favorites of theirs. And again, I think that one's a cover. Yes, that one's a cover.
Yes, it's a cover.
Cheesecake is fine. Remember Walking in the Sand is fine.
So,
yeah, I don't know.
Remember Walking in the Sand is funny because, first of all, it's a cool cover of an interesting, doo-wop style, Phil Spector-ish song. I think it's a girl group song. I can't remember. Shangri-Las, okay. But I feel like they needed... every time I listen to the song, I was like, can you guys turn down the Remember backing track a little bit? Yeah, it's just a little too in my ear. I'm like, all right, but I like this song, but that's a little much. And then also the other thing that's interesting about it is it's like, a couple of years ago, it was like a huge TikTok meme song that they would put over short little videos online. The original, Shangri-La's version,
right.
But like the "Oh No" part of the song is like it was like everywhere on all the videos out there. So you can't help but think of that now, or I can't help but think of it now when I hear it.
Yeah. So what do you think about this one, Zach?
It just seems so lost to me. It like the cover art with them
in the mine.
In the mine. Like what is that supposed to? It just like the title, whatever. It's nice play on right in the nuts,
right.
and but it just seemed like they really had no focus, and then they were kind of like they didn't know where to go or what to do, and so it was like they had to do something, because they feel like they got produce another album and go out and tour and the whole shebang. But I just like, whether it was the drugs or the infighting or the problems that were going on in the band, it just seemed like they kind of, lyrically, musically, they don't really know where to go at this point. And it definitely, the album suffers for that, because the songs you mentioned, and I like Bone to Bone, Coney Island White Fish Boy, and 3 Mile Smile. There's some good tracks here. It's not a total loss. It's just it just doesn't feel like a cohesive unit that you want to like put on and listen from start to finish. I kind of want to go for the songs that I like and then leave the rest behind. And of course, it's got the token ballad, what is it, Mia, that song, Mia. Gotta have a ballad in there somewhere, or sometimes three, depending on. But I also wanted to call out Cheesecake, just because like lyrically, it's, I know we mentioned in the last round there were some problems with the lyrics, but like, there was like the daddy do it thing in the chorus, which was I'm just listening to this. I'm like, this doesn't feel right, guys. And then I think further on, you've got, I'm looking up the lyrics right now, is something about 2 fingers in her pie or something like. I got my fingers in her pie. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, and I'm just like. No.
It almost makes City Slickers to Slitty Lickers a little clever,
Yeah. Well, the innuendo is, or any cleverness is definitely gone at this point. It's just kind of brash.
Looser than her sister. Her sugar gets me high. She knows I can't resist her. Got my fingers in her pie. I mean, come on. Like,
listen. He likes his delicious, New York cheesecake. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah. That's true. That being said, I do like the song. It's just the lyrics are a little bit off, off-putting at times.
What's cool about that song is that it has that tempo switch, which shakes it up. I think if it just stayed on the first riff, it wouldn't be so good. Well, I'm going to zag a bit. I really like this album. None of what you said is incorrect. It does feel unfocused. It just feels like a collection of random songs. It does feel like people are high because the quality of the performances the vocals are a little shaky at times. Yep. And the lyrics are dumb for even for Aerosmith, they're dumb. But I've always liked the highlights of this album when we used to listen to, the stuff that pops up on Pandora's Box, back when we were teenagers, like Reef-Rated Woman. You're right. That is amazing. I always loved that one.
It's top level Aerosmith right there. Isn't
this the most Led Zeppelin Aerosmith has ever sounded?
Yes.
Especially the drums. There's like clear Bonham, he's got to be stealing from Bonham there. Yeah, it sounds a lot like You Shook Me, or Good Times, Bad Times, or something. Love that one. Bone to Bone. I agree, Zach. It's got, to me, it has a bit of more of a Toys in the Attic sound.
Yeah.
Than a lot of the stuff they're putting out. In this era, Mia is an okay piano ballad. I don't love their ballads, generally speaking. Dream On aside, I think it's maybe because the first one was so good that none of the other ones really live up to it. Mm-hmm. I really like 3 Mile Smile, more great drumming from Joey Kramer, who I feel like Joey Kramer is the secret winner in my mind of this re-listen, because I don't think of him as a good drummer. When we were working at Rip Music, me and Neil, and Aerosmith came to town to play at Van Andel Arena, what they would always reach out and try to get people to come in to do like little drum, like, famous clinics. Drummers to do drum clinics. And so he came in to Rip Music, and nice. Did like a drum clinic, which is really cool because we met him and stuff, and super nice guy. But like, he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can do that." He's like, I don't really know anything about, anything, like technique or anything. And so like the drum clinic was just like, 30 dudes hanging out, and he was just like sitting up there on a stool with like a snare and like a very small kit. He played some of his famous like drum parts, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, no, you just gotta like feel." He had nothing like specific to say about drums. Period. It was interesting, but he's not a technical drummer. You never think of him as being a highlight in the band, or at least I never really did. But when you listen to closely to the music, man, he comes up with some really cool stuff sometimes, and he'll surprise you with stuff. You're like, whoa, that's pretty good, Joey Grammer. That's more than I expected. But
yeah, he's definitely not an S tier drummer, but he's I would definitely put him in A tier. The problem is in the 70s there were so many guys sitting behind these giant drum kits who were just as good, you know.
Oh, he's not Bonham. That's for sure.
He's not Bonham. He's not Neil Peart.
Yeah, he's better than I gave him credit for before we. I didn't think of him as a bad thing, but you know, he and Tom Hamilton have more going on than you'd expect because of the flashiness of the guitars and vocals. But so I thought Reef Red One was amazing, for sure. Again, good drums in 3 Mile Smile. I like Cheesecake. Yes, the lyrics are dumb, but I like the song. No Surprise is a really cool riff in the chorus. There's not many songs I don't like on here. As sort of drugged out as it feels, I may like this more than Draw the Line, which, you know, I don't think either of you guys would agree with for sure, but it's right up there with me in this set of 4. The highlights are really high for me, and I don't know. I really like this one.
So how about the bonus tracks here? What you guys? So Downtown Charlie is another one that didn't make the album. I don't know why. It's an amazing song.
Yeah.
It has a very different feel. Like the production's very loose. The vocals feel like a real one take, you know, type thing.
Sure, but it's perfect. You know, they nailed it.
Oh, it's really good.
They could have replaced 6 of the other tracks on this album with that one. And
no, they just need to add it. I don't want to lose any tracks. They're all amazing. No, they're not all amazing. But.
I mean, unfortunately, at that point, it becomes a cover album with a couple of new tracks. But
and also they have that other cover. We talked about they don't want to do too many covers. They did 3 freaking covers on this album.
Yeah.
Think About It, the Yardbirds cover. That's an okay song, but I feel like it's the weakest of the covers maybe on the album. But they could have ditched Chiquita, for example. I didn't think much of that song.
Yeah.
But Downtown Charlie is definitely better than Chiquita.
And then what did you think when Shapeshifter or Sharpshooter, came on?
That's interesting.
Zach, what did you think of that one?
Yeah. So was this another one that was without the Toxic Twins?
This is Whitford St. Holmes. So Brad Whitford left.
Right. Yeah.
After,
okay. That's what it was.
He left after Night in the Ruts, and joined up with St. Holmes. I forget his first name.
Derek St. Holmes, best known as the being on the first guitarist. Few Ted Nugent albums. Like he's the guy that sings on Stranglehold.
And,
it was fine. It was interesting in a different sort of way.
It's very 80s.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds like 70s butt rock.
Okay.
And you don't realize how fine the line is between Aerosmith, like good, like 70s, like hard rock, and like bad 70s hard rock. Yeah. And Derek St. Holmes is a good singer. Like he's awesome on Stranglehold, but this is not great. I didn't like it very much.
And then we've got Shithouse Shuffle, which I didn't realize was just the riff from South Station Blues when I put the album or the playlist together, which is a Joe Perry Project song, which I kind of like, actually.
I like both of them. Yeah. It's cool to hear because that Shithouse Shuffle is on Pandora's Box as one of the little quick aside band only songs. And no vocals.
South Station Blues is also on Pandora's Box.
But I don't think they're back to back, right?
No, they're not.
So I never really connected the two that directly, but when it fades out and then it comes in with the same thing on acoustic guitar, you're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So yeah, Joe Perry has now left the band officially. Brad Whitford has left the band, and they're off doing their own things. Did you guys have anything else on Night in the Ruts before we move on to Rockin' a Hard Place?
Well, my note for South Station Blues was, please stop singing, Joe. Like, it just, I mean, when you hear Steven Tyler's voice, it's so like there and sort of in your face, and it just has has the balls behind it, and Joe just feels like he's kind of like not like he's an okay singer, but he just doesn't really have like the thing to push him over the line. And
it's bland.
I've said it before. If Joe Perry had never been a part of Aerosmith and only had a solo career, he would have been perfectly fine as a singer. But when you put his voice right next to Steven Tyler's voice, it's like, why are you even singing? He's more along the lines of a Clapton, where he's an incredible guitarist who is able to sing notes accurately.
That is a good comparison, because Clapton is not a great singer.
No, he's fine.
In the right context, it works. Yeah.
But or Hendrix for that matter.
I think his style and his ingenuity comes through on the guitar.
Yes,
that's where his strength lies.
He looks cool and he writes cool riffs. That's what Joe Perry does. And then he also sings. That's also a thing that he does.
He's able to sing, and he should be background singing. I always when he's also singing.
They sing well together for sure.
So, the only album that we don't have Joe Perry for at all is Rock in a Hard Place. What else do we change? So we've got Rick Duffy on some guitars. We've got Jimmy Crespo on some guitars.
I don't think Rick Dufay or Duff, I don't know how you pronounce it. I don't think he plays a single note on this album. He just gets added on as the replacement.
Yes, afterwards. You're right. He doesn't record anything.
Yep.
Brad Whitford recorded Lightning Strikes, but nothing else.
Yep. He took off, huh?
And for some reason, we now have Steven Tyler in the producer booth, which
because there's coke in the producer's booth.
Yeah, probably.
Because nobody really wants to try to produce a band of drug addicts without two of their key components, I would guess.
Yeah, and somehow they got Jack Douglas back for this one. I don't know how he went missing for Night in the Ruts and then came back, but.
Well, when they on the initial version of Night in the Ruts, they did work with Jack Douglas, but then they abandoned. I guess they weren't productive, shockingly, right? Because they were all on drugs and stuff. But I think they ran through the budget, and then they got sent back out on tour to make some more money,
right?
And then they came back and re-recorded the rest of it afterwards. And I think Jack Douglas just didn't come back at that point because they were just having they were butting heads and having some personal issues, and he was frustrated. So I think they tried to have him on Night in the Ruts, and it just kind of didn't pan out.
So Rockin' a Hard Place is definitely the low point. I can get behind some of Night in the Ruts, but man, this is a tough album to listen to. I don't think I thumbs up a single one of these songs. Not a single one.
All right, I'm gonna zag again. No, I'm not. This album's garbage. I will say on this. This album. Go ahead, Zach.
I was just gonna say it just feels so uninspired. Like the guitar. There are people playing guitars, but they don't.
It's fine.
Yeah,
there's no chemistry.
Jimmy Crespo as the Bob's Burgers Mafia character. That's all I can think of when I hear that name for some reason. It's I'm Jimmy Crespo. I'm here to play some guitar for you guys. And but he just doesn't have the style. I mean, I'm sure he's probably making some of the guitar riffs, to fill what it needs. He's not he's writing the stuff, but it just doesn't have the same style and feel, and he's into it. It just felt like this is a job. I'm gonna play some guitar riffs and do a little noodling, and okay, now I got to go home. And that's what I got out of it. And then the song quality was just not there, but also it seemed like they were kind of moving moving the needle way far into the ballady territory, the slowed down, stuff like Cry Me a River and Joni's Butterfly and Push Comes to Shove. It just seemed like they were, I don't know, trying to capture the same essence of what was going on at the time with the shift from 70s rock to 70s hard rock to more of a like hair band ballady type of rock. I mean, I don't think it was quite there yet, but the early 80s was definitely where it was starting out.
Yeah, and that's another thing. It took 3 years for this album to come out. Going from 5 albums in 5 years to now 3 years later. I mean, there's no inspiration to make this album.
Yeah,
they're just trying to copy. Lightning Strikes and Bitches Brew are the singles, and those are definitely your 70s, early 80s butt rock.
Yeah.
That we just mentioned tracks, and I don't care for them.
Yeah,
I think that there are 3 okay songs on here. Jailbreak, Lightning Strikes is okay, and then Rockin' a Hard Place, Cheshire Cat has its moments. But my notes are stuff like driving song, like the Jailbreak. Oh, it's not like you drive with it, but like it's a nice driving, like it drives forward. Okay. It's not like there's anything great about it. It's just, okay, not too bad. And then Lightning Strikes, I just wrote organ intro because that's the thing that's most memorable about it. And then Rockin' a Hard Place, I just wrote not bad. And I think that's because Bitches Brew, Bolivian Ragamuffin, Cry Me a River, Prelude to Joni, and Joni's Butterfly are actively bad. Like, I really, really don't like those. I don't know why we needed that psychedelic Prelude to Joni intro song. That was, I don't get it. That just doesn't make sense in an Aerosmith album. Super out of place. Joni's Butterfly, they're trying for something like ambitious and lush, and I'm
sure
terrible.
It made sense for producer Steven Tellywacker.
But yeah, those are 3 like mild endorsements of these aren't bad if you have to choose 3 songs, because really, like, relative to the rest of the album, they're pretty good, but they would be songs I wouldn't mention on any album before this because they just don't, they're just not actively bad. Whereas I think every other song is actively bad. This is to me, the bottom of Aerosmith. They have fully fallen. It's 60% of the band. It's a guitar band. I mean, I know that Steven Tyler, the rhythm section is important. Steven Tyler has a super distinctive voice, but this band lives and dies by the guitar work. Absolutely. And they replaced their 2 guitar players. It just doesn't work.
Anything else? So we've got Riff and Roll as a bonus track, and I didn't think that was particularly interesting.
No.
What did I have for Riff and Roll? It sounds like the Rolling Stones. That's the only thing that jumped out at me.
I can hear
that. It's not great, but I feel like the Stones would have done a good cover of it. But that was interesting. But I mean, I would say it's better than most of the songs on the album, but that's not really a ringing endorsement, honestly. So,
yeah, Done with Mirrors, the first album on the Geffen label. It's more than 3 years after Rockin' a Hard Place, which is a very long time for this band between albums. And we've got everybody back. We've got the original lineup back. We don't have Jack. What's his name?
Douglas, yeah.
I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Don't have Jack Douglas anymore because I'm guessing he's a Columbia guy, and now we're on Geffen.
Makes sense. Yeah, they're all back, and so are the drugs. They still haven't ditched the drugs yet.
I thought they had cleaned up at this point.
Nope. It was permanent vacation, and we'll start next time. This is the last fully drug addled album that they put out, but it is all the original members back, so that's good.
So we've got them back. What were the singles on this? Sheila and Let the Music Do the Talking. Let the Music Do the Talking is a wait, no, I don't know.
Joe Perry. It's a Joe Perry project cover.
Is that okay? That's the one
from the
it is.
Second album, Joe Perry project album.
Yeah, and I think Tyler rewrote the lyrics or reworked the lyrics or something, but
that could be.
Yeah, it's a cover of Joe Perry project song, and it's pretty sweet. I love My Fist Your Face. It's really cheesy, but I think it's a lot of fun. But I think the highlight on this one is She's on Fire.
Yes, definitely.
That is by far the best song. Just that the guitar in it is so good.
And it's a really cool vocal hook that they puts over the guitar. It's a really, really, really neat, unexpected sound because they don't use acoustic guitars very often, especially with the slide. Yeah, that's the best album or best song on the album. Yep.
I also liked The Hop and Sheila.
I liked The Hop, and I like Let the Music Do the Talking, and I like Shame on You, but the other ones didn't really do much for me. This album was a little worse than I expected.
Really?
My memories are pretty fond of this one. Like, I thought it was going to be up there with Draw the Line, in a not prime Aerosmith, but like pretty good. And I think it's because I really remember Let the Music Do the Talking and She's on Fire and The Hop as being great songs. And they are. I really like those songs, especially She's on Fire. But I was a little let down by the rest of the album. I mean, I think it's definitely better than Rockin' a Hard Place, which is, a bit of an abomination. But I thought I was going to like this one more, but it's still solid. It's still good. I still think it's
a step in the right direction is what it is. Yes, it feels like they're writing together as a cohesive unit instead of ripping each other apart. There's just a path forward from this album. It's a nice little light at the end of this segment here after being in such a dark place and Rockin' a Hard Place.
And here's a quick, interesting wrinkle. The original album didn't have the last song "Darkness" on it.
Right.
That got added, presumably for time reasons. I don't know. It doesn't make sense because it would have fit on an LP. It would have been okay on vinyl, but they added it later on to CDs and cassettes. And I think they should have left that one off. That's maybe the worst song on the album for me. Anyway, Zach, what are your thoughts?
So the first time through, I really only liked She's on Fire, and the rest of it just kind of felt samey and uninteresting. And then the second time through, I really dug the second half. Basically, I think the song right before She's on Fire, and then everything else.
Gypsy Boots.
Yeah. And then the third time through, I was like, I kind of get this. I kind of get what they're doing, and it's okay. Like it's not perfect, and again, it feels like they're trying to be a little too much. They're not going their own way. They're kind of just doing what the times are calling for, and I think that's crucial because the stuff in the earlier albums, I think it's Aerosmith. It's not like this is a band that's trying to be like Led Zeppelin, or there were some moments that felt kind of Led Zeppelin-y here, or other bands of that era and that style. But it really felt like they were trying to do their own thing, and I think part of where they lost their way, other than losing the guitarists, is that they were trying to. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know really who they were, probably because they were so drugged out that they were kind of like, just let's see, well, what's on the radio right now? What's on MTV right now? And they were kind of trying to appeal to those audiences, thinking that that's what's going to get them the fame and the success back. And I think it's not going to be until, we start seeing these later albums in the next episode that they're going to shift that, and they're going to start to go back to their roots, and they're going to start to go back to what makes Aerosmith, and being true to themselves. And I think that's what people really respond to on the music. But with this one particularly, done with Mirrors, I started to really like it, and came around to what was going on more than just the She's on Fire song. So some of the riffs are really cool. Some of the drumming and bass parts really fill it out. And Reason of Dog, the Darkness, I actually think was pretty cool, even though I didn't know that it wasn't on there originally. But it's a nice little ender for the album, and not your typical type of piano ballad thing.
Dan, did you have anything else for this one?
Yeah, I not Not much, but you're right. I mean, I think we actually feel roughly the same about the album. I just expected more from it because of my fond memories of Pandora's Box. Well, was it even on? It wasn't on Pandora's Box, but like listening to it as part of the pre MTV era, you know, the pre comeback era. You used to play it sometimes, and I was like, oh yeah, this is when they really got good again. And I don't know if that's entirely true, but it is an interesting thought experiment. What they ended up doing when they got sober was, you know, we'll get into this on the next set too, but they ended up really like cranking up the production and getting involved with outside songwriters to make pop hits, you know, not all their songs, but they started putting a lot of, you know, 80s production and pop type songs on their stuff, starting with Permanent Vacation. I would be curious if they'd gotten sober and they had just gone their own way, kind of followed the path that they started with Done with Mirrors.
Where would they wonder
what would have happened. I mean, we'll talk about this next time, but to me, they become a different band starting with the next album. I'm really curious as to what this band, just the 5 dudes in a room, you know, sober, would have come up with, you know, if they, I know why they did it, you know, because basically Done with Mirrors was a failure commercially, and they hadn't had any success really since Rocks, right?
Yeah.
Like they didn't have critical
I think maybe Draw the Line. Draw the Line sold two times platinum, I think. So
yeah, which isn't bad. A bit of a come down, but they were really in a rut. No pun intended. And
it's been since '77 then since they've had a real hit.
Yeah, so it's been almost a decade, and it was a decade by the time that Permanent Vacation came out. Mm-hmm. And so they were like, "This is our career. We need to make this work." And so they were convinced to work with outside people. I'm just curious what their last handful of albums would have been like if they would have been left to their own devices. But of course, we'll never know that, and that's for next for the next installment.
So if you had one of these albums, which you can only pick one of these 4, which one do you take?
Draw the Line.
That's tough. Not for you guys, but for me. Night in the Ruts and Draw the Line. I'll just for the sake of something different. They're pretty close for me, but I'll take Night in the Ruts. Yeah. I just really like that one. I like it more than probably I should, but I really like that one.
Yeah, it's clearly Draw the Line for me. But yeah, honestly, Done with Mirrors is not too far off because I do like a lot of it. I would put it second in this group.
Yeah, me too.
It would be like 13th overall.
Yeah, it's not that high overall, I wouldn't say, especially of this first 15-year or whatever stretch. Or even less. Man, they cranked out so many albums so quickly. Mm-hmm. I mean, they slowed down, but even so. But yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that Rockin' the Hard Place is the worst.
Yeah,
definitively. Yes, definitely.
And
it is the bottom.
I'm curious to hear the last few albums, because I don't think we're going to run anything into anything worse in the next batch. But I have really not listened to the last couple albums at all. So I'm curious. The last studio albums, original song albums at all. So, but I feel like this might be their worst album period. We'll see.
Yep. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Would you be ride or die at this point?
That's pretty tricky.
I would say yes if I'm allowed to sort of be like, yeah, but everyone gets one mulligan. The right. Rockin' a Hard Place. Like everyone has a dud, and it can be explained through. Is it really an Aerosmith album if you don't have Perry and Whitford? Right. So I would say yes up to this point, being a little generous.
I would if we had stopped on Rockin' a Hard Place, definitely no. But I think with Done with Mirrors, it turned it around, and I think I would say yes as well.
Yeah, I am for sure a yes. This is probably my favorite band of all time, especially as I'm going back and re-listening to all these and enjoying it so much. Rockin' a Hard Place is a tough album, and I don't ever have to listen to it again. So that's good. And yes, with the momentum that they've taken with Done with Mirrors, I am for sure ride or die at this point. Unless you guys have anything else.
Well,
Nope.
let's do a quick favorite song off of each album. For you guys, one song. If you had to choose one song off of each album, starting with "Draw the Line," what would you choose?
Kings and Queens.
Pretty obvious.
Kings and Queens.
Yeah, Kings and Queens for me.
For
Night
it
in the
would be
Ruts.
Reefer Woman.
I think I agree.
I would be Remember Walking in the Sand.
Okay.
Interesting.
Remember.
Just like that voice whispering in your ear so much.
And from the Rockin' the Hard Place era, I choose the Joe Perry Project's South Station Blues.
You have to choose one off the album.
Yeah.
I choose 5 minutes of silence.
5 minutes of silence. I would say that Jailbreak's my favorite. That's not to say I love it. It's the bottom. It's just fine. Probably Jailbreak.
I would go Rockin' a Hard Place, Cheshire Cat.
That's probably where I'm going to land.
Yeah, that one's the other one that I considered. That one's a little more interesting. Jailbreak is just a get in, get out type song, it feels like to me, but there's a little bit of a wrinkle in Rockin' a Hard Place, Cheshire Cat. And then what about, it's got to be She's on Fire, right?
Right. It's the clear standout on Done with Mirrors.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you for listening. This is the second part of a 4-part deep dive into the Aerosmith discography as part of our Ride or Die series. Wherever you found this one, you will be able to find the previous one, and soon you'll be able to hear the upcoming ones. You can find all of our stuff on 64tacos.com. And if you like supporting this kind of thing, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/64tacos.com. That is a way you can spend money to help our endeavors here. We'll see you in the next one.
I caught it on audio.